We're in Paris for the Paralympics, and I thought I could do a little vlog of what it's like to be at the Paralympics as a disabled person. Hi, I'm Eliza, a disabled content creator from London. I create content every 2 weeks all about disability, LGBTQ+ positivity and lifestyle things, and today we're in Paris, so come along with me. So I was lucky enough to be invited to the Paralympics with TikTok, and at the time of filming this, the Paralympics finished on Sunday and it's now Tuesday. But I went to the Paralympics in the kind of beginning portion, so I was there from Wednesday to Saturday. So I was there when the opening ceremony was going on, and then I saw some of the very first parts of sport. So because of that, we mainly saw heats, but we did see a couple of medal kind of races and swims, but mainly we were seeing various different heats. And we were some of the first into the arenas and stadiums for the Paralympics, which is very exciting. The Paralympics took place in Paris this year, and if you weren't aware, it's called the Paralympics because it runs parallel to the Olympics, not because some people involved were paralysed. So I'm going to take you through my experience navigating Paris as a wheelchair user, navigating the Paralympics as a wheelchair user, and if I enjoyed it and any thoughts that I had. So let's start off with travelling there. I travelled on the Eurostar. It was the first time that I had been on the Eurostar as a wheelchair user, and I was travelling from London, St Pancras to Paris, Gare du Nord. So when we got to St Pancras, we basically were taken straight through to an access line and straight through to security. And I am going to be honest, the security I did find quite difficult for me. I am also autistic as well as being a wheelchair user, and I just found the security was very busy and quite overwhelming and quite stressful. I wasn't allowed to film anything in there, but I did find myself getting quite overwhelmed. But the good news is, if you travel via Eurostar as a wheelchair user, I don't know if it works for other disabilities, but if you travel as a wheelchair user, you get access to the business class lounge and you're put on business class carriage, which was an absolute lifesaver. After going through security, we got into the main station waiting area, and it was so busy. There was literally nowhere to sit. It just looked really stressful. It was really busy. It was really overwhelming. It was not an area that I would have been able to sit in, really. So we were taken straight through to the business lounge, which was much quieter. We had a lot more space. There was also free food there, which was great as well. So I was able to kind of sit and decompress. There was supposed to be somebody that was going to meet me at the business class entrance to then take me to my train, but that didn't end up happening. So we just made our way to the platform, and then there was somebody waiting with a ramp on the platform. We were last pretty much to board the train, but the staff were very helpful when it came to the ramp. The ramp was a very large ramp, so it was very easy to get on because the Eurostar has a very big step up compared to other trains that I've been on. So there was lots of space to get on the ramp, and then we were put onto business class. And when you're on business class, you also get a free lunch, which was very nice. We were then on the train for about 2.5 hours roughly, and you arrive in Paris. The great thing about getting the Eurostar is that you arrive kind of more central in Paris compared to if you fly, because you're further out. Although flying is technically quicker, I do think that actually having to get to the airport, going through security, getting on a plane, waiting to be taken off the plane with assistance, waiting to get your wheelchair back would probably all take more time, whereas on the Eurostar you get to sit in your wheelchair, which for me made a massive difference. And then when we arrived in Paris, TikTok actually had a lovely car waiting for us, which took a lot of the stress out of traveling, because the public transport in Paris is really not that accessible. I think there's only one accessible line on the metro, so we were just able to jump in a car and then go. And then we basically got to our hotel room and had a bit of a rest, really. Moving on to day 1 or 2, depending on how you look at it, but basically our first full day, and this was the first day where we were going to see sport. One of the things that I noticed about Paris is that it was actually very quiet. Apparently tourism has been really down due to the Olympics and the Paralympics, because lots of people who maybe aren't interested in sport just haven't been coming to Paris, and a lot of people who live in Paris have been moving out or letting out their houses, because then they can make a bit of extra money without having to be in like a busy area. But it was actually really quiet, which was actually quite nice and made it much easier to navigate. So the first sport that we went to go and see was Boccia. Everyone says it in a different way, and what I've learned is that it depends on what country and region and all of this you come from. So we are here watching Boccia, which is a sport where wheelchair users, kind of similar to bowls from my research, where your wheelchair users will throw a white ball and then they need to get their colour ball closest to the white ball, which is very interesting. It's my first time watching here, and it's my first Paralympic sport in Paris. So I'm very intrigued to see what this is going to be like. They're just warming up at the moment, so I'm very excited. I've also got myself a very sweet Paralympic teddy. This is Fruge, and this is the Paralympic version. I also met Fruge about 20 minutes ago as well. He was very, very sweet and got a nice photo with me. Basically, it's a sport where there are a red team and a blue team, and a white ball is thrown, and then you need to get the balls as close to the white ball. That is very, very basic description, but that gives you a rough idea of what it is. And it's a sport that's designed for people with various different disabilities. Anybody can play it, but it's one of the ones that was designed to basically be accessible for pretty much anybody who wants to take part at all, which is amazing, and we love to see it. And it was really interesting being able to watch the sport being played, because they were so precise when it came to throwing the balls, and it was just ridiculous how skilled they were. Hello, right, so we've just watched some Boccia, and I'm actually going to go and give it a go and see how good I am. I think I'm going to be rubbish, so let's find out. Proof that not everyone can be a Paralympian, so we're going to give it a go.
Yes.
Oh, that was too hard.
Long enough, please.
Oh!
That's perfect.
Hey, look at that.
But it was interesting going into our first arena in the Paralympics, and it was interesting to see how accessible it was. It was very easy to get through security. Again, we weren't allowed to film in there just because that's just the rule. But once we were in, it was very, very easy. It was very quick. We were taken through, and it was all step free, obviously. But one of the things I did notice about the Boccia stadium is that it was all step free, and there were no lifts either. So it was just all ramps, which made it so much easier to navigate, because in the future, we talk about how the lifts in Paris are not very easy to navigate when we went to the big athletics stadium. So with the Boccia stadium, there's lots of space to move around. They had great wayfinding. It was very quick to get through. They also had a gift shop there, which was great. And they had lots of toilets. It's very interesting in Paris. The accessible toilets are gendered, whereas in the UK and in London where I live, we don't tend to gender our accessible toilets. Generally, we just have a unisex accessible toilet. But in Paris or France in general, they seem to be gendered, which was interesting. But they had loads of toilets available. They had food available, and also the view was really good as well. So we were able to see everything that was going on. We could see the screen as well. There was lots of space to move around, and the wayfinding was great as well, along with the staff being really, really brilliant. One of the things I will say is that I went to Paris a couple of years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago now, and I unfortunately did find that people were not necessarily rude, but just weren't the friendliest in Paris. But this time it was completely the opposite. Everyone was so lovely. All the staff were really, really helpful. They let us know if we needed anything. They would direct us. They would just help whenever we asked. And that just made it so much easier. I found it very accessible, which was good, because going forward, not all of my experiences were that accessible. So we are in the South Paris arena, and I'm going to take you round. I'm here, yeah, it's the Paralympics, and it's very accessible. I've been quite impressed so far. So I'll show you all of it, how we got in, what it's like, how I move around, how I go to the toilet, everything. So let's go. The floor is very easy to navigate. It's just like concrete, which is good. I've got my little Paralympian Fruge and yeah, there's loads of space to move around, which is great. And it's nice and cool, which is another accessibility thing, because if it's too hot, I can't cope. So I'm enjoying the temperature. There is very clear wayfinding and signage, so it's very easy to find your seats and get around. They have loads and loads of food options, which is great, and lots to pick from, which is really nice. Again, you have to pay with Visa here, but at least there's food to eat in the stadium, which is perfect. And I actually really like the stadium. It's really easy to see the sports going on. There's loads of space around, and they've got screens as well, so you can actually see what's going on when you're in there, because there's lots of games being played at the same time, so it can be a bit confusing, but the screens can help with that, so you can keep up with the points of any countries that you want to follow. So getting in was very easy. It wasn't that busy, so we were able to pretty much just go straight through the queue, but they do actually have a priorities queue for disabled people. So if you aren't able to wait in a queue, you can go through that line, and the staff were very understanding. Everyone there spoke pretty good English, which is good because my French, rather embarrassingly, is pretty rubbish. And also because it's Paralympics, I think it's been a bit quieter. But even when it's busy, it's picked up quite a lot as the day's gone on, particularly as this is one of the more popular sports that's going on. It still feels like there's lots of room to move around, which is great. And getting in wasn't stressful. The staff were really lovely, really patient. At no point did I feel stressed or rushed or like there was something wrong, and it was just very easy to get in. So day one morning was Boccia, and then the evening was still busy. And bear in mind that I have an energy limiting disability. I was tired by this point, but I felt like I was at the Paralympics and it was a chance to enjoy. So I just dove right into it, which moves us on to our next event that we went to, which was the swimming. The one thing that I found with the swimming is that it was much harder to get to. With the other events, I just went in one car, but with swimming, I had to go in two cars, which did mean that it took quite a lot longer to get there. And the traffic in Paris was so bad the whole time. As I said, there are really no accessible transport in Paris, so we had to go via taxis and cars, and luckily TikTok actually gave us a lovely driver. But because of the fact that Paralympics was on, lots of the roads were regularly closed and lots of people were driving into the city, and it just meant that it was so busy, which I just found, it meant that it just took ages to get everywhere. And it just felt more tricky. And then when we arrived at the swimming, we ended up arriving late due to the fact that it was just so busy. And I did find it a bit trickier to get in. The security was just a little bit tighter with the swimming. I think because we were going to a different area, we were like going into the press area. And so it just generally took a bit longer to get through. And it was also just a bit more difficult to get to our seats, which was a bit frustrating. But overall, the view was really, really good. And it was exciting because we got to see lots of medal ceremonies, including one for Team GB, which was exciting. Poppy won a gold medal, and it was one of the first gold medals that we won, I believe, and she went on to win many, many more at the Paralympics. Congratulations. The view was great, and it was cool to see an amazing medal ceremony, but we didn't get to see that many races in the pool. And also I did find that it was a little bit harder to kind of understand who was winning, just because with the Boccia they had a clearer screen, but with swimming it wasn't quite as clear, and they were so quick you didn't even necessarily know who kind of touched the side first, and then it would take a couple of minutes to go live compared to when you're watching it on the TV. I feel like actually watching sport on the TV is better than watching it in live person, at least with the Paralympics kind of sports. Maybe with football and stuff not so much, but with the Paralympic sports it's so like close in terms of who's winning. I actually found it better overall to watch on TV than in person, but I did still find it really interesting looking at the arena, seeing the pool, how big the pool is absolutely massive. And also just the arena was really beautiful and just really amazingly designed, and also seeing the press area was cool as well, and just having our own kind of space was great as well. I will say that not all the tickets were sold out, and generally the arenas were quite quiet, which was a bit disappointing because the Paralympics is just as important as the Olympics and just as interesting as the Olympics, so I want to see it sold out in the future. So in the evening after the swimming, after we got back to our hotel, one of the things that I really wanted to see when I was in Paris was the Eiffel Tower sparkling. It was something that was just really special for me, and I know it's basic, everybody wants to see the Eiffel Tower, blah blah blah, but I haven't been to Paris for a long time and I'd never seen it sparkle before. And because the schedule for the Paralympics was so full on, it was really, really hard to see Paris during the day. So pretty much the only time that we had to see it was in the evening. So we decided to go for a lovely walk, and we got to the Eiffel Tower for around 11 p.m. I was so excited to see it sparkle, and then it did, and it was just so exciting. It's really, really beautiful to see, and I just really enjoyed it. And it was just actually nice being around Paris, seeing people living in Paris, seeing other tourists, and lots of people also around the Eiffel Tower at that time taking photos, things like that. And it was about an hour-ish walk from the Eiffel Tower to our hotel, and as I said, we had no accessible transport, so we had to walk all the way there and all the way back, but it was worth it and I loved it. Quick break here while I talk to you about Patreon. Patreon is a platform where you can directly financially support creators, and in return you get lots of cool perks like early access to YouTube videos like this, access to like-minded people with the community Patreon tag, and loads of other perks. And also for the first 60 members to sign up as a paid member, you are going to get this lovely sharky pin, which was designed by my spouse. It's so cute. I love sharks. If you didn't know that, sharks are my absolute favorite animal, and that will be sent to you upon signing up. You also get access to draft content, which I just never post online, and also a really cute old YouTube list, which I don't have live anymore because I find the videos a bit embarrassing, but they're for you to enjoy and laugh at me. So if you want to join my Patreon and support me financially, there's a link in the description to join the Radiant Rainbow Club, which is what I call mine. So day 2, our next full day, we got up very, very early. That was kind of a common theme with the whole experience in Paris. We had to get up very, very early. And we got to go to the Paralympics Team GB house in the morning. We got in our car and off we went. And it was really cool to see the Paralympic Team GB house. If you aren't aware of what that is, it's basically a space that the athletes can come to hang out, be with family, see like brands and sponsorships, things like that. But it's also where they come after they have won a medal and get a big celebration. And if they win an achievement of some kind, then they get to ring the bell. They didn't say if it was just if you won a medal, it could just be an achievement, I believe, of some kind. And we actually got to see some of the athletes come through and ring the bell. And it was a really cool space just to see what was going on. They had a cute photo opportunity in the Paralympic Team GB house, along with a space where we could also make a t-shirt to celebrate all the athletes and meet some of the team and the other people who were kind of supporting the Paralympic athletes while it was going on. And I also got to interview some of the Paralympic athletes, which was amazing. And I'm going to pop this interview in now. Hello everyone, today we're here with some of our amazing silver medalists who have just won some of the first medals for Team GB. How does it feel to win?
Daffs.
It's a bit surreal, to be honest. I'm really happy that I managed to pull off a great performance and do it with my coach and come away with silver medal. It is a bit bittersweet. Obviously, we'd love to win a gold medal, but I've got more time to do that, and this is just the start of my Paralympic journey.
Amazing. Cool. So, one of the things that people say to me as a disabled person is that any disabled person can be a Paralympian, and I want to show that that's not true. So, what does your day-to-day look like compared to mine, an average disabled, compared to your day-to-day with training, getting up and all of that?
I think we have quite a jam-packed day when we train across track and road, so it could be getting up quite early and getting to track for like 8 if we have track sessions from 9 till 12, and then we could have gym or physio and stuff like that, and then we also could ride again in the afternoon. So our day is actually taken up by riding a bike or gymming or doing Pilates and stuff. So we have basically a full day's schedule of exercising.
You do Pilates? Maybe I should do that.
Maybe.
How does your day compare to that?
My day is pretty much getting up, my partner makes me breakfast, and then I have a nap and I do a bit of work, and that's it. So yeah, maybe I need to find a sport that's like accessible for me.
But I'm also a napping queen,
Okay,
so this is
something.
fine. Like if I have a gap, lean up for like 40 minutes.
Maybe we could like compete with napping and see. Like, I feel like I could win a gold medal at that. You know. Final thing, can we see the medals up close?
Yeah, for sure.
Look at them. Congratulations, guys. Well done. After we interviewed the amazing athletes, I went home and had a nap because I was pretty tired at this point and my energy was running quite low. I was actually supposed to go to the Paralympic Village, but I just didn't have the energy. I was so exhausted at that point. I was in so much pain and I just needed to have a rest. But I found it really amazing meeting some of the athletes, seeing what they've done, seeing what they've achieved, meeting silver medalists, seeing the silver medal in real life. It was just really interesting, and it was great to see some of the behind the scenes of the Olympics and the Paralympics, to see where the various different athletes would hang out, because before it became the Paralympic house, it was the Olympic house. And it's just great and exciting to see what's going on behind the scenes, because I feel like when you watch it on TV, you don't necessarily see the people behind that. You just see the race or whatever sport they're competing in, and then that's it. But actually getting to know some of the athletes is really interesting, and just seeing where they're able to hang out was really cool too. And then yes, I had a nap, which was very, very, very needed at this point. And then in the evening, we went to athletics, and personally I wasn't actually that impressed with the athletics stadium because it just was not that accessible for me, annoyingly. So we got a car there, and when we arrived we realized that we needed to go in a lift in order to be able to get to our seats, and the lifts were just not that big, and it just really slowed down getting in and out of the stadium. And because the lifts were just full of other wheelchair users, it just took forever to get in and out. Once we were at our seats, unfortunately, the way that they set up the stadium, the wheelchair users are like behind the seats, so you don't get to sit with your carer, which I found a bit difficult because I just kind of felt like I was sat on my own and a bit out of the action, which was a bit sad. And also the toilets just weren't that accessible. They were very wet on the floor and just were not in a great state. They didn't look like they were being checked that often. They didn't have that many bars in there, things like that. And one of the things that I did notice about the athletics stadium was that I couldn't see the screen from where I was sitting, so I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know what race was what, who was part of what country, what was going on, who won, because I just couldn't see it. And even if you like leant forward, you still couldn't see it, particularly in the wheelchair spot, which was frustrating. So the view just wasn't that great, and I just overall didn't find it that accessible. I did get to see the long jump, which was done by blind athletes, which was really interesting to look at how they did that and navigated that, and looking at the way that they make the sports accessible in the Paralympics I find so interesting, because sports should be accessible for disabled people. We are able to be athletes, and seeing them competing and the way that they made it accessible was super interesting. And it was really interesting to see that in person, because we actually got to see the different guides working, which the TV doesn't always focus on as much. But I will say that I just didn't find it that accessible at all. And that was quite disappointing as a wheelchair user who was trying to watch disabled people in sport. It just was not that accessible for me, unfortunately. And then after we watched some athletics, we went home and got a delivery because we were starving hungry and it was too late to go out for dinner at that point. The next day we woke up, and this was the final day. It was the day that we were going home. We got up very early and were taken to the station. But one of the things that we did do before we got on the train was just wander around the streets for a bit and did a little bit of shopping, but also had a look at what it was like to navigate Paris as a wheelchair user. Personally, I actually found it fine. There were lots of drop curbs, there were lots of ramps. It was very, very flat as a city, so there weren't lots of hills, which made it much, much easier to navigate for me in my chair. And also, I just found the crossings really interesting. They were different to what we have in the UK, so I was just looking at some of the differences between the different cities and what it was like to navigate them. And also got some breakfast, which were my first croissants in Paris, because by this point we just hadn't had time to stop. We were kind of just eating on the go. I was quite impressed with the food in Paris though. Lots of it was very, very lovely. Whenever we got a takeaway, things like that, it was all so full of flavour and just so delicious. I'm definitely going to miss that now that I'm back home. But it was just interesting navigating the streets of Paris. The main thing that I found was an issue is that they did have more dog poo on the streets than in London, but that seems to be something that people talk about a lot, so maybe that's just like what Paris is like. But overall it was very flat, very easy to navigate, and if you're a wheelchair user, I would say that it's fairly okay. The main problem is public transport, but then that's also a problem in London too. I've spoken about that a million times, so I was quite impressed. We then went into the Eurostar station, waited for our train in the business class lounge, and got put on a train via business class and went home. So that was my experience in the Paralympics. That's everything that I saw and did. Did you watch the Paralympics? Did you enjoy it? What did you think about it? And thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget, if you want to get one of these lovely Sharky pins, you can join my Patreon via the link in the description. If you want to keep up to date with me outside of YouTube, all my socials are on the screen. It's @Disabled Eliza. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're well. Have a great week. Bye.